In this segment, we will look at completing the change management effort. The purpose of completing the change management effort is to document the actions and resources needed to close the change. The close effort is the point at which there is a distinct transition to maintenance or sustaining activities. First, let's look at evaluating the outcome against the objectives. Change management efforts should include the following actions as required to evaluate the outcomes against the objectives. Compare the outcomes of the change management effort against the change objectives set at the beginning of the change effort. Compare the outcomes of the change management effort against project or program objectives if project or program management is in use. Document the outcome of the appropriate comparisons indicating that change efforts met objectives, failed to meet objectives, or exceeded objectives. Review outcomes with appropriate leaders and stakeholders. Inputs include change objectives and goals, measurement and benefit realization plan, sustainability plan. Outputs are change objectives analysis, outcomes, and next steps. Next, design and conduct lessons learned evaluation and provide results to establish internal best practices. The purpose of conducting lessons learned is to evaluate the success or adoption outcomes of the change management program, document what went well, record learnings, and share improvements for future change management programs with other change management practitioners or organizations. This step is conducted by the change management lead in concert with the project manager when possible. The final lessons learned evaluation uses the collective feedback of the team and stakeholders' customers to understand the outcome of the change management program and document improvements. It also provides a useful validation of any outstanding change management issues or activities. Undertaking an evaluation of lessons learned reinforces the commitment of the team to continuing and sustaining the success of the change. It also enables two-way feedback regarding how the change was embedded and future improvements for the change leads and organization. The activities of a lessons learned evaluation are to review change management activities and documents, identify and recognize positive outcomes and opportunities for improvement, develop a remediation plan for change management activities to address key issues, verify and document actions for future projects, document lessons learned in a knowledge management database or common document storage location for sharing with other change management practitioners. You should identify an appropriate group to conduct the evaluation. Key individuals and groups affected can be identified for participation using the outputs delivered. The change management lead conducts an evaluation of lessons learned by bringing together team members, key stakeholders, the project sponsor, leadership, affected staff and customers, and other appropriate parties. You should perform the lessons learned evaluation. The purpose of bringing the key individuals together during this process is to review the change management objectives, review each phase and its key objectives, review the effectiveness of each change management workstream against its key objectives and defined outcomes, review the effectiveness of the approach and ways of working, verify that the change management goals of the initiative were reached, and validate key change actions for future projects. Identify good outcomes and points for improvement, including any possible mitigation or improvement based on the current initiative. Review change management activities and documents for other best practices or future improvements. Determine which design, strategies, and lessons learned will contribute to internal best practices going forward. And update the knowledge management database or common document storage location for sharing the lessons learned with other change management practitioners. The change management lead produces a document that presents lessons learned in a logical manner. The document should provide guidance and best practices for future change initiatives. The lessons learned evaluation document should consider questions such as, what are repeatable, successful activities? How can we ensure future projects go as well or better? What advice would you give to future teams? And what are some individual successes? Inputs include case for change, success criteria and measures, a change management plan. Outputs include lessons learned evaluation and a remediation plan. And finally, let's look at how you gain approval for completion, transfer of ownership, and release of resources. Several activities need to be completed during the final step to formally close the change. Approval shall be sought from the Stakeholder Steering Committee, senior sponsor, or client, confirming that the closure conditions have been met, including an evaluation of outcomes against objectives according to the agreed-upon scope of the change, a report of the lessons learned through the change, a document demonstrating the transfer of the change outcomes to the appropriate stakeholder operational owners, a plan to release any remaining change resources. The transfer of ownership. The ownership of all change outcomes, processes, technology, organizations, and other outcomes must be transferred from change resources to stakeholder operational resources. This should be evidenced by written agreement of both parties. Additionally, transfer of future strategy plans must also occur as part of the outcomes. All change resources should be released and made available for use in other change efforts. Inputs include change objectives and goals, measurement and benefit realization plan, lessons learned report, future strategy plan, agreement on ownership transfer, resource release approval. Outputs include a final summary report and change initiative completion.